Welcome to the 10 Acre Woods, or should I say, welcome to Nature's Craft House. Now, this is the name Tara gave our basement, which half of it is devoted to crafts, running from wool processing to beading to woodworking, all kinds of different things that we usually hold classes during the winter months. But of course, because of the current pandemic, this past winter we haven't been doing too much of that. But you can still check out our wool processing videos. Just skip the first one. There's a lot of comments on that stating that it's bad audio. And I do have better audio now, and we've done other videos since. So check out those videos. Now, woodworking and the laser engraver. So some of you have expressed some interest in how I laser engrave, and this is one of the products here. This is a baseball dice game. Now, we're sticking to this size, which is 9 inches by, I believe it's 5.5 inches. It's or 5.25 inches. It's a 1x6 essentially, and this is made of poplar. We found that poplar is a nice average dense wood. You can get those grains in the end, and if you're using something like fir, which we tried to run a few of those on, and we were just getting some inconsistent burn marks in it. So today I'm going to show you our laser engraver and then give you a little bit of the process behind going and turning this into this. So here's a close-up of it. I've put the 10 Acre Woods down at the bottom, and we've got the peg holes, which aren't drilled out yet. They're just lasered to get the holes. I find that trying to burn them out completely to the proper depth, you get burn marks. So this seems to be the best way. It gives it a nice clean edge around the holes, and then Tara goes and starts drilling the holes. It's going to be quite challenging when we make the next one, which is the cribbage board. I'm going to stick to this same design, and then all of the games will basically be able to sit on a shelf, and we're going to laser engrave the name of each game on each one, so you can have that on your shelf and pick it out. So that's the whole idea behind it, sticking to this size. Now, the laser engraver that I purchased 2 years ago, I want to say, I got it from China. I saved a few bucks by doing it that way. Of course, there was some headaches in the whole process with brokerage fees and shipping fees, but it saved a couple $1,000s, and that is a good thing, right? So this is the unit here. It is the M500. Which is manufactured by Redsail. This is not a promotional video. I went and I bought this and had it shipped in. Now this laser engraver is, well, I guess you could say it's 60,000 milliwatts of power. And when they use the milliwatts, it sounds so much bigger. It's a 60-watt laser engraver. I put this light in here just to get a little bit more light, because I was taking a scan of this, which you'll see shortly. It powers up from the side here. And this is the laser head here. This is kind of my template. You can see how it says frustration rummy. So this is the template. These magnets are actually, we've actually gotten them out of feed bags. So our grain. And what they are is they sit on the hopper around the edge of where the grains go in when it's being processed or harvested. And these magnets will pick up anything from the field that, like screws or metal debris. So sometimes we get lucky and we get these in the bag. So that is handy here. Control panel, which gives you all your basics on there. We'll just shut that off. And so back here is the heart of the unit, which is the laser tube. Now this is where the high voltage is generated from. This is a 60 watt instead of a 40 watt or 50 watt. So the tube is longer. So they've just kind of built out the extension onto here. High power goes into the end of here and pulses through a tube which is inside that tube. And the space in between the outer tube and the inner tube is filled with water that recirculates throughout. And here's the water line here. It shoots out, it hits a mirror there, which then in turn goes and hits another mirror, which is inside the unit back on the end. And then it goes from that one across over to this one here, in through that little opening there, and then it shoots down into there. There's a little bit of an air blower here that pushes any kind of debris off. And then exhaust ventilation out and out the window, so your house doesn't smell like you're wood burning. So that's the rundown of it. It does have this nice feature that you can open up the front and back. And if I want to make something that is longer, the bed, I believe, is, if I recall correctly, 19 inches by 11 inches is the work area. So that's the laser cutting work area. But again, I can open up these front and back, and I could actually make a totem pole if I wanted to. I just kept on feeding it out. And that is kind of a rundown of the machine. It's got the coolant water reservoir tank here. This is a converter from 120 volts to 200, or 110 to 220 volts. There's an air compressor there as well. And back in the back, it's a little hard to see, but I took a coolant radiator fan meant for computers. And I hooked 3 fans onto the radiator, and the water runs through there for cooling. So that's a rundown of that. There's the temperature. It's 19.9 degrees Celsius currently. Okay, so I'm up here in my office. It used to be my son's room, but since he's moved out, now I have an office. Tara has her Nature's Craft house, so I get a little piece of my own little space. And this is where I do all of my editing and all of my work on Photoshop, which I am using. So I usually use Photoshop because I'm used to it. It's got different layers. I'm familiar with the design of it, so it just makes things easier. If you have something like a JPEG, or you search the internet for a design you want, you can always use that design by importing that into the program, which is called Auto Laser, for the Redsail products. So moving over to Photoshop, I started out with the dice. So I needed to design all of the dice, and they're all on individual layers here. So I can select them and export them and save them as, I'll save that as a 1. And then I'll save that as a 2, and etc. So that I'll have each individual dice. And then what I do is I move over to my design, which I've measured out into the size of it. So the image size here is 13 centimeters. So if we change that to inches, my board is 9 inches high by 5.377 inches. So I've got that all set up. And then I know that these are the areas that I can work within. Now this is a slightly older version because I've actually got the other one over here to hold the 4 pegs. I realized that I don't have a 0 ending and I don't have a 0 score. So I could have actually added a 0 in here and a 0 in here. But what I decided to do is just copy this just to make it more even across the board, and have another one over here with the 4 pegs that you would then populate your score with and your innings once you started the game. So this is all broken down into layers. Over here I've got I've got all my dice layers, my rows, and what's within my rows. So the word home run and the 2 1s, and those are up here. So you can see if I click on those 2 1s will then disappear, and I can hide them. And then I can adjust them and move them around each individually. So if I were to shut off this whole dice row, you can see that is the dice layer. This is my my title at the bottom, Nature's Craft House, which I've actually changed this to 10 Acre Woods because We couldn't really read this on the first prototype we did, so we decided instead of having 10 acre woods here, we just enlarged the tree and then put 10 acre woods down at the bottom. So each of these sections is broken up into their own area where I've designed each one of those sections. And finally the dugout at the bottom. So that's how that is designed. Now you'll notice that there isn't any holes or any circles that I've done on that. And what I've found is the holes themselves are 1/8 of an inch. So what is that, 1.25 inches. So putting them in here, I could design them for that size, but then if I make any kind of adjustments with that picture that I've designed, the holes are going to change in size. Plus, I don't have the flexibility I do if I have them as one single layer. So I usually do that in the auto laser program after I've moved this into it, which talks to the laser machine, and then I have a little bit more control over it. So I can change whether it's a cut, which the laser will then follow the circle and move to the next circle, or if it's a carve where it goes back and forth and actually carves it out and makes an indentation. We found the carve works better because then when Tara takes it over to the press to drill out the holes, then she has, you know, an indentation to kind of work with. I didn't want to go full strength and try to cut out the hole or the whole peg hole. I found that it burned quite a bit. So we found that drilling them out after we've actually, you know, carved everything out seems to work best. And it's just a cleaner design. So moving back over to the program here. So once I've got it designed on Photoshop, and you can use any program really, you can download it off the internet, or you can use you know, Windows Paint really if you want. Then we've got the auto laser program. So if we go up and we click import here and we bring this design in, now this is one layer, and here's the layer over here. It's showing a speed of 300 and a power of 40. And I can change this in the parameters here. I can, the carve speed, I can tell the laser head to move slower, or I can change the power down here up to 100%. So different types of wood requires different, you know, if it's a harder oak wood, you might want to burn it a little bit higher setting. So 40 seems to work really good with poplar that we're using. Now I've got this and I want to add my holes in now. And you can see I'm at 5.5 inches here and I'm at 9 inches here. So that's my size, and this is what it's going to look like on the laser. So what I will do is just grab my circle tool and I'll make a circle, really any size as long as it's a circle. Then I can go up to this area here. Let's lock that and go in and type 125. And that is going to change both the width and the height. The height. Try that again. So then I will grab my tool here to grab it, and I'll bring it up. And then now we know that this is 1/8 of an inch hole. So I can then copy that and paste it, and then line them up. And you know, if you want to be really, you know, picky on your size, which I tended to do, I went right in and lined them up perfectly, and then I brought it over and I just dragged it and lined it up so that it was directly underneath the two. So what I'll do now is I will, you know, put this whole row in, and then I just simply, well, I don't do that. Edit, undo. Now let's select that again. I will highlight those two, and then I'll just copy them and paste them and line them up to where they should be. And the more you zoom in, the better control you have. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll just drag those down the whole row. So I'll have that whole row populated, copy the whole thing, and then there we go. And the same thing goes for the ones down here. I can then save that for later use. I can save it as what's called an out file. I can put it to a USB if I want, and I can plug it into the side, which is what I did in the beginning. But it's just easier to go ahead and use this program because it has a nice feature where it's got a border view. So you click on border view, the laser head will then move around, and it'll you can use it to line up, and then you simply hit start. And then when you hit start, it asks you to save a file as a certain name, and then it's saved in the machine. So I can go back after the machine's been shut down, unplugged from the computer. I can go back and I can load it within the memory inside of it. So we will go back downstairs, and I'll show you the preparation on how we get the board all ready to go, and we start laser engraving. So now it's time to prep the board, and I've got these all cut already. So I've taken a 8-foot length and then cut them down. I think we get 10 out of each one. And again, they are 1x6s. You can use, this is poplar, which is what is populated. It's very popular on the 10-acre woods. And it's got a really nice grain. It's a very even grain, so it burns really nice. So I just basically wipe off the boards, make sure that there's no cat hair, because we have 6 black cats, or there's no sawdust or anything on them. Now, what you want to do is you want to mask the boards, because what will happen is if you don't mask them, you can see on this test run here how there's burning and smoking. Now what will happen is that's the oils from the wood, and it just goes and it hazes it. So you don't want that. You want a nice clean burn, which you can see there is just nice and clean without any hazing. So we used to use this masking tape, and of course we would line them up and we would have to butt them up, and it was a lot of work. So I have sourced out this from a local company in the city, and you can get this, and it's just wide masking tape, and it is perfect for 2 of them side by side. So what I do here is we just pull them out, line them up, and then we just lay our masking over top, and then grab our knife and cut them out. So if you, depending on the size of project you have, you can get this stuff in a lot of different sizes. This one here was it was a decent size. I think they had some extra runs, and I got a little bit of a discount on that. So it's not cheap stuff. So just be aware of that. So now that we've got that, I'll just separate them into the 2 of them, and then there we go. So now we're masked, and we can take a bank card or a Costco card or whatever you have, and then just make sure that they're on there good, and then you won't have any smoking going underneath the tape, and it's nice and clean. So now that we have this, we'll go and we'll put it into the laser engraver and line it up. So what I've done here is we just use a piece of paper. This is a legal size piece of paper, and we just put down, and we've used these magnets just to kind of hold it in place. Then we just let the laser run and do its thing. And this we only had to do once to get things figured out. And then we could set it in, line it up, figure it out, run our first one, make sure it's where we want it to be by moving these back and forth. Then I just drew a line down each side just so I know that it's set up properly. So now we just line pop this in gently so we don't move the magnets. The magnets are pretty strong. And then looking down the side of it, just to check to make sure that I can see the line there, which I can. Good. And then it's pushed all the way up to the back. So now I will just turn on the machine. It's going to go through its little startup, and I haven't moved the origin of the laser because we've been running these, so I don't want to move the origin. I know it's lined up now. All right, so that's it. So then we just hit the start button and away we go. Coda, what are you doing? These cats. These are the two boys, Lucifer and Coda. And they like to go, because the window's open blowing it out, so they like to go over. Coda likes to go over and just stare out the window. Something else that I've done here is this. So this is just an old computer. And I had this kind of neat dragon emblem. So I brought that in, and this is called a vector. So this would be a vector, or it would be cutting, not carving. So the laser will go around and will do the entire pattern. And then what it's doing is it's actually etching out the metal off of it. So you can do this with laptops, you can do it with cell phones, you can do it with all kinds of different things. So that was just one of the other ones that I did. So if we look into here carefully, because there is a high-powered laser, you can actually see the laser passing through the center of the tube. You can't really see it coming out of the end of the tube, but it hits that mirror on the end into a fine point, and it gets transferred to our project. So that is the laser as it runs. Here's the water tubes coming out, my reservoir, and my fan system there, which is basically just a computer radiator with computer fans, and it's wired up to 12 volts, and the water runs through that. And then also you should be able to see, yeah, there's the laser through that little window there. So that is the rundown on the laser. And we've done a few different projects. One of the first ones we did is we did this here. There were some picture frames. Some people still use picture frames. So we put the 10-acre woods, goat yoga, and then we've got the little hoof prints here on the edges. So we just had to line that up, get that all figured out. Now this is a good example of carving, which is the horse. Sorry, cutting, which is the horse. So that's a vector that I actually downloaded. And it did a really neat job. And then I just came up with some kind of a saying. So that is carved down at the bottom. So I did a few different ones of these, and it turned out really nice. We threw some lacquer on it. This was just a scrap piece of wood. It's dirty on the back. But it was just playing around and figuring things out. I also went, and you can go online to different websites that have downloadable projects that you can download and you can use. You know, some of them you do have to pay for, but you can get quite a few that are free. And one of the ones that I got for free was this here. Now this is a book, and what's really neat is it was a board and it laser engraved this pattern on here so that you can actually bend it. So that was really neat. So there's the end, and then on the inside there was just these edges here, and they're all like dovetailed, so that you can put them together and glue them. So those go in. The only issue with this is it does slide kind of back and forth this way. So what I was thinking about doing is possibly putting like a magnet in each of the corners so that it would kind of snap shut. So that is it for this video. I hope you learned something on this. I hope it was interesting, educational, and enjoyable. So we've been using this now, like I said, we've had it 2 years. We've slowly started to move more and more forward with it and getting more advanced. There's still a lot we need to learn about that. But if you have one of these machines and you have questions about it, we've kind of learned the hard way on it, or if you're planning on getting one of these machines, let us know, because when we first pulled it out of the box, everything was in Chinese on the display. So I didn't have an interpreter. So how do I figure out what is languages and how do I go through the menu when it's in Chinese? Well, Google helped me out on that one. On my phone, I pulled up Google Translate, and I just hovered the camera over the screen, and it actually recognized the text and translated it into English. So I went through, and when I saw languages, selected that, and sure enough, English was in the English language, and I could select it. So that was a little bit of a learning curve. Another one was we started printing, and everything was backwards. I'm like, what is going on here? And I saw another YouTuber that had, he does these pens, he engraves these pens, and he had the same problem. And he did the exact same thing I did, is there's a mirror selection on auto laser. They design the whole thing and then just hit mirror and mirror the whole thing, send it to the machine, and then it would be the right way. Kind of Band-Aid situation. It was actually my son that figured it out. What was happening is the home position of this laser is in the top right corner, and the auto laser is set up in the top left corner. So you can see how that can cause problems. So he found that setting, fixed it, and now it's working much better. Because there's times where I didn't flip it, and I'm like, oh no, and you're using wood that, maybe some expensive wood, and you mess it up. So anyway, again, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more about them, if you want me to make any more of these videos, let me know down in the comments, and any questions you might have, please again leave them down in the comment section. So until next video, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.